My name is Evelyn Brooks, and the day I realized power doesn't always announce itself with a title was the day everything started to fall apart for the man who thought he owned my silence. If you'd asked anyone in Chicago's tech scene who built North Star Analytics, they would have said Daniel Hart, our charismatic CEO, the golden boy of logistics AI, the man with the keynote invitations and magazine covers. But if you asked how the company actually worked, how the algorithms didn't collapse under pressure, how deadlines were met and disasters quietly disappeared overnight, the answer would have been me. I was 35, officially the director of operations, unofficially the spine holding a $300 million startup upright. I didn't just manage processes. I designed the architecture, wrote the contingency models, fixed financial projections when our CFO guessed instead of calculated, and smoothed over client crises before Daniel even knew they existed. That Tuesday night, the office was empty except for me and the low mechanical hum from the server room next door, a constant reminder of where I belonged in the hierarchy. 3 monitors glowed in front of me, my reflection pale and tired in the dark glass. I was correcting a forecasting error that would have detonated our Series D funding if it had reached investors. Again. Just one more hour, I whispered, the same lie I'd told myself since 7 p.m. Daniel liked to call me his operations wizard in meetings. The first time, I'd smiled. By the 10th, I understood the trick. Wizard, not executive. Wizard, not partner. A neat label that kept me impressive but contained. My phone buzzed. Slack. Daniel, sending messages from wherever he was holding court that night. Need the Belmont freight deck revised by tomorrow 8 a.m. changed my thinking. You know what I like. No please. No context. Just certainty I'd absorb the work like I always did. Through my office window, I could see Daniel's corner office, the real one, with the skyline view. That's where investors drank bourbon while he explained strategies I'd built at 2 in the morning. The Belmont deal was $200 million, the biggest contract in North Star's history, and it rested entirely on a logistics framework I designed from scratch. Every efficiency curve. Every cost-saving algorithm. All mine. In the presentation, Daniel's name sat proudly under Chief Visionary. Mine appeared once, size 8 font, on the acknowledgement slide no one ever reached. 6 months earlier, I'd asked about becoming COO. Daniel had leaned back in his chair and smiled. You're too valuable where you are. I need you focused on what you do best. What I did best, apparently, was everything. Vendor negotiations. Legal contract redlines. Financial modeling. Crisis calls at midnight. Invisible work. I leaned back, staring at the employee recognition plaque hanging crookedly on my wall. Excellence in support. Support. Not leadership. Support. Another email came in, this time from sales. Daniel promised the client delivery next month. I know it's impossible, but can you work your magic? Magic. I almost laughed. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked down the hall to Daniel's office. His assistant had given me a key card for emergencies, which apparently meant whenever he needed something. The space was immaculate. Awards on the walls. Photos with tech celebrities. On his desk sat a printed email I'd sent outlining the entire Belmont strategy. In the margin, Daniel had scribbled, simplify. Make it sexier. That was his contribution. I thought about how he introduced me to investors. This is Evelyn. She handles the technical stuff. 3 years of building the company reduced to stuff. Tomorrow, Daniel would walk into the most important meeting of his career wearing my work like armor, unaware it had seams. I returned to my desk and reopened the presentation. Fine. One more revision. He'd get exactly what he asked for. The email arrived early Thursday morning. Subject line, travel confirmed. I opened it expecting the usual downtown hotel. My eyes moved down the list. Daniel Hart, Ritz-Carlton, Chicago. CFO, Ritz-Carlton. CMO, Ritz-Carlton. COO, Ritz-Carlton. And then, at the bottom, like an afterthought, Evelyn Brooks, Comfort Inn, Joliet, Highway 30. I stared at it, reread it, felt something cold settle in my chest. Joliet was 40 minutes away. While they networked over cocktails, I'd be next to a truck stop. I pulled up the travel policy I'd written myself. All employees traveling for client meetings shall be accommodated at business-appropriate venues. Daniel had signed it. He'd also ignored it. Slack ping. Daniel again. Saw you were working late. Don't forget the updated numbers. Travel's all set. I replied carefully. There seems to be an error with my hotel booking. His response came instantly. No error. Budget considerations. Your personal logistics are personal. Personal logistics. The words burned. I stood so fast my coffee spilled. 3 years of loyalty, and I was being told I wasn't worth a decent hotel. Patricia, our COO, appeared at my door. She glanced at my screen, recognition flickering across her face, then looked away. They all knew. No one said anything. That night, I drove to Joliet, the skyline fading behind me. The Comfort Inn sat between a diner and a gas station, its neon sign flickering like it couldn't commit. My room smelled of disinfectant and old smoke. I sat on the creaking bed and opened my laptop, but instead of the presentation, I scrolled through old emails. One caught my eye, from Margaret Sloan, Chief Legal Officer at Belmont Freight. Your insights at the Logistics Summit were exceptional. Rare to see real depth behind the buzzwords. People like us get remembered, even if not immediately. I'd saved it without knowing why. Now I did. Margaret Sloan would be in the meeting tomorrow, watching Daniel sell my work as his own. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. Daniel thought he'd put me in my place. What he'd actually given me was clarity. When you realize someone values you at zero, you stop protecting them from themselves. My phone buzzed one last time. Get some rest. I'll need you sharp for technical questions. I didn't reply. Outside, a truck roared past, rattling the window, and in the dark, I smiled. Tomorrow, Daniel would walk into that boardroom confident and untouchable. He had no idea the ground under him was already cracking. Friday morning arrived wrapped in steel gray clouds, the kind that press low over the city and make everything feel inevitable. I woke before my alarm, already dressed in my mind for what was coming, calm in a way that surprised even me. By the time I reached the office, Daniel was already there, pacing, energized by panic, rehearsing lines in the glass reflection of his corner office as if confidence alone could bend reality. He stopped me in the hallway, voice bright but tight, reminding me to keep things high level, to let him handle the vision, to jump in only if absolutely necessary. I nodded, the way I always had, and kept walking. The drive to Belmont Freight's headquarters was silent for me and loud for him. He rode with the executives, laughing too hard, selling certainty. I drove alone, windows cracked, breathing in the cold air, feeling something settle into place. The boardroom was larger than before, 12 seats arranged in a horseshoe, polished wood gleaming under soft lights. This wasn't a pitch room. This was a judgment room. Daniel launched in with practiced ease, talking about transformation and disruption, about culture and synergy. The words floated beautifully, hollow and light. Then the questions began. Real questions. Specific ones. A board member leaned forward and asked about the algorithm's response to volatile input patterns. Daniel smiled, hesitated, and glanced at me. I waited. The silence stretched. Finally, he gestured toward me, calling me the technical lead, shrinking 3 years of ownership into a supporting role. I stood, steady, and explained the architecture clearly, precisely, without drama. Heads nodded. Pens moved. Another question followed, then another, all technical, all substantive, all mine. Daniel faded beside me, a man slowly realizing he'd been speaking a language he didn't understand. Then Margaret Sloane spoke, her voice even, surgical. She asked Daniel how he managed critical talent during major negotiations. He talked about empowerment. She asked if that empowerment extended to equal treatment when traveling for 9-figure deals. The room went still. Daniel laughed nervously and mentioned budgets. Margaret asked where I'd stayed. He answered. The reaction was immediate, visible, impossible to undo. Faces changed. Postures stiffened. Someone actually scoffed. Margaret didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She asked one final question, one that landed like a gavel. If I weren't there, could this deal be implemented successfully? I answered honestly. No. She asked Daniel the same. He didn't answer at all. The meeting ended not with argument, but with quiet finality. Chairs slid back. Portfolios closed. The deal walked out without a single dramatic word. In the elevator afterward, Daniel tried to smile, tried to spin, tried to pretend this was salvageable. My phone buzzed before we hit the parking garage. A direct email from Margaret, requesting a private follow-up meeting with me alone. Daniel read my face and whispered, "What did you do?" I told him the truth. I answered their questions. The fallout was swift. By afternoon, investors were calling. By evening, the board convened without him. By nightfall, the story was already leaking, framed not as a failed deal, but as a failure of leadership. I sat at my desk, calmly packing the few personal items I brought into that building, while chaos bloomed behind glass walls. Daniel emerged from the emergency board meeting carrying a cardboard box, his expression stunned and empty. He saw me waiting and accused me of planning everything. I shook my head. You planned it when you decided I didn't matter. He left without another word. The next morning, sunlight poured through my apartment windows as emails stacked up. One from our board, offering me interim leadership or a clean exit with terms that acknowledged my real value. One from Margaret, offering me a role that matched my work, my authority, my worth. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. I replied with conditions, not demands, standards. My team would come with me. Respect would be structural, not performative. Equality would be policy, not rhetoric. Her response was immediate. Agreement. By the end of the week, the industry had decided who the story was really about. Not the man who lost everything, but the woman who stopped holding a collapsing structure together and let gravity do the rest. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't sabotage a thing. I simply stopped making someone else look competent at my own expense. And that, I learned, is the most powerful move of all. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the invisible backbone in someone else's success, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that silence is not loyalty, and patience, used correctly, is power.